Doing Things the Hard Way with Dan. I call this channel Doing Things the Hard Way because I come from a long line of people who have been cursed by bolts breaking, things breaking at the wrong time. But along with this curse has come a skill with finding out how to creatively solve those problems the hard way. The right way would have been use the torque wrench. This weekend, or last week, my son got brave and went out in the garage and did his first major wrenching project. And I was really proud of him because it's super cold out here. And in the cold garage, he got all the way down in the timing belt in this little Honda Civic of his. Got the water pump out, and the only thing I had to help him with was the harmonic balancer bolt, which is honestly a two-man job, especially on a shop floor with limited tools. And, you know, he was doing such a good job that I gave him a little bit of space, and he worked on his way back, and he forgot to use the torque wrench on the water pump and snapped a bolt in the water pump. And that sort of thing will happen, especially when you're a beginner and new, and, you know, I don't hold it against him. But the good news is he didn't get mad, and we started solving the problem. And so I immediately went to the regular things to get rid of a bolt. You know, try to strike a set point in the center of the bolt. But what I found when I got in there is that the bolt had broken subsurface, and it wasn't a flat shear, it was an angled shear. And since it was down inside next to the frame, I couldn't get a set down there with a hammer to be able to set on the center and break it. It was too below surface for me to be able to get my welder in there and weld a washer to it and then a nut. And at that point, I'd kind of given up and had to think about it. And I thought about it for a couple days, and I had remembered some tricks that I had learned while making CNC machines. And I'm going to tell you how I fixed that. Come on in, Ching. So, when you're unable to get center on a drill, okay, the hard part is it was an aluminum, right? And in aluminum, if your drill wanders off of the bolt into the aluminum, it'll start eating aluminum, and then you'll have an off-center hole, and it'll be completely ruined. So you have to be able to drill down the center of the bolt if you're going to be able to extract the bolt or helicoil and replace it. And I couldn't do that, one, because it was in a hard location in the side of the vehicle, right next to the frame, and because it was a tapered shear and below subsurface. So what I did, and what I figured out, is I disassembled the old water pump that I wasn't going to use anymore, and I drilled out the bad bolt hole, and I press inserted a drill bushing that you can find on McMaster-Carr. Drill bushings are really useful tools to guide a drill bit. In fact, let me grab a drill bit. Hold tight 1 second. I'm going to grab a drill bit and show you. Here's the drill bit that I cut the back off of, 1/4 inch. As you can see, it fits just snugly with the drill bit, and it'll keep the drill bit in line. I had to cut this off because there wasn't enough room for my angle drill to get in there. It forces the drill to stay in line, and even though there was a tapered break on the other side, I bought a carbide tipped drill bit from McMaster-Carr, and I slowly pecked until I was in the center of that bolt, and then I was able to drill the bolt out and helicoil it. Although I did try to use a left-hand thread to try and get it to bite and pull it out, the bolt was too tight, so I just drilled it out and helicoiled it, and we just reinstalled it and got the new one in. And that's doing things the hard way with Dan. The lesson here is to never give up. And I had a great dad who taught me to never give up, and he was stubborn that way. About probably 2 months before he died, my dad had really bad arthritis. My dad, and in his 70s, could only do this to close his hands. Most of his tools, he'd built molds around the screwdriver so he could grab onto the screwdriver, and he had a rubber mold that would go over it because because of arthritis, locked up all his joints. He couldn't close his hands all the way. And he was changing the alternator in his Chrysler Baron and couldn't get one bolt loose. And he had two sons that lived within 5 minutes of his house, but he wouldn't call us. What he decided to do instead was to tape the wrench to the bolt he needed to loose and tie a rope to that and lay the rope over the front of the car, put a loop in it, and he got his Bobcat. Drove his Bobcat and hooked it with a pair of forks, lifted up the rope, and loosened the bolt with his Bobcat. So I come from a long line of people doing it the hard way because we're not quitters. So, and the reason why I'm going to do this channel is this isn't for people who want to learn how to drill a hole. This isn't for people who need to learn how to use a torque wrench. There's plenty of channels for that. These are for people who have found themselves in a really bad spot and have been cursed like me and need help doing something the hard way. I wish you luck.